Ladies and gentlemen, if you would you please welcome the honorees for the 62nd Annual Texas Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame for the year 2019. Be seated. Well, welcome to another version of Super Sunday. Welcome to Super Sunday the week after. It's another way of saying welcome to an afternoon of sports celebration with a distinct Panhandle flavor. Welcome to a gathering where the best of today and the best of yesterday are honored among their family, friends, and even rivals. Welcome to an idea that has stood the sometimes harsh test of time. Welcome to the 62nd Annual Texas Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame ceremonies. 62 years, 6+ decades, that's a long time. Longer by 8 years than last week's Super Bowl, and sometimes it's been longer than the Super Bowl, but not lately. We've made some streamlined changes, and we've made some major recent changes, too, for the better. And that's starting with our leading sponsor going into its 6th year, which is Kids Incorporated, which really is the perfect sponsor for the Hall. And if 62 years sounds like a long time, Kids Inc. has been around 13 years longer than that. This is their 75th anniversary, their Diamond Year celebration. So for the 62nd time, folks just like you have gathered to reflect and honor the local greats who have earned induction into this shrine that will, by the end of this afternoon, will total 187. And will honor the current crop of athletes and coaches who add to the rich sports tradition in the Panhandle. This afternoon we will induct number 184, 185, 186, and 187 into the Hall of Fame. And that is pretty unique for this little top of Texas. You know, there aren't many regions which have something like this, or certainly for something this long. I've talked to those from outside the area who have been to these, and they always usually say the same thing. Do you know how nice this is? And I wish we had something like this too. Well, we have something like this because Put Powell, a longtime Globe News sports columnist, and advertising executive John Heatland put their energies and ideas together in the late 1950s, enlisted the help of the YMCA, and built something a little special, a little unique, a lasting tribute to sports and the men and the women who play them in the Panhandle. And after their deaths, the baton was picked up by Garrett Von Netzer, Warren Hassey, and David Jones, among others, to continue on. And then when the YMCA closed, Kids Inc. enthusiastically stepped in. And so more than 60 years later, it's still going strong. I think it's going strong because the Hall of Fame is not so much about plaques and pictures on a wall, although they're certainly enshrined at Kids Inc., but it's about people. It's about those with dreams and goals, athletes and coaches who love being in the arena, who got to this place by work, by talent, and competitiveness to be the best they can be every play, every game, every day. Now, many of you in the audience, well, you're their support system. Those on stage here, I think, would be the first to say that they are, in so many words, a tree with a deep root system that extends to coaches, parents, wives, husbands, older brother or sister, friends, and certainly to teammates. Many of you who have played a big role in their lives are here today, still in dresses, heels, or coat and tie 2 hours after church. Hey, we've all made sacrifices, right? And many of you who have played a role in their success, you're right here. And in a way, their award is yours as well. Before we move along with the program, there are always former members of the Hall of Fame who come back every year, mainly for the free food and to kind of show off their hip replacement surgeries, but hey, they're here. Would you please stand where you are if you're a member of the Hall of Fame and be recognized? And I'm announcing that I'm officially retiring the old joke that if you believe you should be in the Hall of Fame, please stand. Sorry, but that's gone. Again, welcome to athletes, coaches, inductees, friends, and family. You'll be glad you gave up a portion of your Sunday afternoon to be here. To provide a welcome and voice our invocation is the Executive Director of Kids Incorporated, the corporate sponsor of the Hall of Fame, Mr. Jimmy Lackey. Jimmy?
Thank you, John Mark. On behalf of our staff and our board of directors, certainly along with all the members of the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame Selection Committee, welcome to everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. This is always a treat. We've got a tremendous group of inductees today. I think one of our most diverse, and you'll really hear their stories and understand what we're talking about. We had a great day yesterday. Had the pleasure of meeting with each one of the inductees, and during my talk, Mr. Arrington introduced me to his family, and I learned that one of your sons is a pastor. So I took advantage of that opportunity. And so I'd like to ask Dr. Yancey Arrington, teaching pastor at Clear Creek Community Church in Houston, to come forward and give our invocation.
Thank you. For those of you who would like, would you please join with me in prayer? Father, we are grateful for today, grateful that you love us, grateful that you have provided a way of provision for forgiveness and reconciliation in your Son, grateful for these men and women, for these athletes who display the glory of you, who are made in your image, who have done incredible feats on soccer fields, bowling alleys, track, basketball courts, and the like. God, we're grateful for them, grateful that we can have a time to celebrate their greatness that you've given them here today. So, Lord, I pray that this would be a blessing not only to them, but to their families and to their friends who have been with them, their coaches that they've brought along, everyone in tow, that we might just not only celebrate them, but celebrate you, the giver of all good things, from whom all good things come, and ultimately all good things will return. And we pray this in the name of Christ the King. Amen.
Dr. Arrington, thank you very much for doing that. Make sure I've got, of course, they would get out of order. Timeout. To all of our athletes and our coaches and our special achievement recipients today, Hall of Fame inductees, our congratulations from Kids Incorporated. I'm going to keep my part real short. I want to say some thank yous to some folks that very rarely get their just due, and they're truly deserving of this. Yesterday, Coach Udy made the comment about successful high school programs are successful because of junior high staff, and that junior high staff often get forgotten about, but if you don't have a good junior high staff, and your high school program is going to suffer from that. I think that's something along the lines, Janine, that you mentioned yesterday. And I feel very much that way about my professional staff at Kids Incorporated. No one has a clue what they do day in and day out. But I'm going to tell you real quickly some things that they do. Consider this. This past year, they formed 1,538 teams and secured over 4,000 volunteers to make sure we had coaches and assistant coaches with those kiddos. They scheduled 5,745 games throughout the year. If you take that and divide it by 365 days a year, that's 16 games a day. They placed 15,517 kiddos on teams this past year. They made sure we had officials and referees at every event, made sure the gyms were reserved, the fields were reserved through the school district, and on occasion dealt with that old sorehead parent that just really wanted to get in our grill that day. And you all know what I'm talking about if you're in the school business. Long before I came to Kids Incorporated, I worked for an individual at WT, very good at what they did. One of the things I didn't like is they always took credit for a lot of things that my teammates and colleagues, their ideas. And I told myself if I was ever in a position of leadership, I was always going to make sure that wasn't me. And so just for a minute, I want all my staff who are here to raise their hand, wave their hands. I know they hate doing this. I've got one back here. Stacy, where are you? Where's Stacy? Get over here. The recipients, the inductees, they all know, any of you who've been former recipients know this is the lady that puts this together today, and this staff makes today happen. They make everything that we do at Kids Incorporated happen, and they are so richly deserving of your applause. If you would just give them a bit, please. It is our 75th anniversary. I can't speak firsthand to the first 50 years, but I can definitely speak directly to this past 25, and I've had the privilege of working with some of the very best. So I hope today is enjoyable for you. I hope you have a great time. Sit back and relax, grab a snack. Restrooms are over here, and enjoy the 62nd Annual Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame ceremonies. Thank you.
Well, this is a portion of the program where the present paves the way for the past. This is a day of recognition not just for the careers and lives of our four inductees today, but for the current accomplishments by some who may one day themselves be inducted into the Hall of Fame. It's the honoring of the coaches and athletes of the year in now 11 sports. You know, the calendar year of 2019 was a typically strong year in the Panhandle. The Panhandle has always been fortunate to have some of the best coaching in the state, but that's not to diminish those who make it happen. The athletes, those who, in the words of Jerry Rice, the greatest wide receiver in football history, said, "Today I do what others won't, so tomorrow I can accomplish what others can't." So let's meet the athletes of the year for 2019. In baseball, for 3 years at Amarillo High, Rhett Maynard moved easily from football to baseball. So easily, in fact, he was named the school's multi-sport athlete of the year for 2019. He was a running back, defensive back in football, but it was in baseball where he made his mark. He was a 3-year starter for Amarillo High and really made an impact as a junior and senior. It was in a regional semifinal playoff series with Colleyville Heritage in 2018 that he began to catch the eyes of college coaches, and in particular those at TCU. He finished that year hitting .360 with 6 home runs and 37 RBIs. Well, that just paved the way for the 2019 season, where he bounced between shortstop and pitcher. As a pitcher, Rhett had a 1.72 ERA and 48 strikeouts in 56 innings. As a shortstop, he had a 9.913 fielding percentage. But in either position, he still had his bat in the lineup. Last year on a 27-10-2 Sandy's team, Rhett batted .366 with 6 home runs, 45 RBIs, an on-base percentage of .437, and a slugging percentage of .714. What all that meant was that he was second-team Class 5A All-State, the Amarillo Globe News Player of the Year, and a selection on the Texas High School Baseball Coaches Association All-Star Team for the North. In November of 2018, he signed to play with TCU, and right now, that's where he is, just beginning his freshman season with the Frogs. Accepting our brothers Jake and Will Maynard, good baseball players in their own right, for the Baseball Player of the Year from Amarillo High, Rhett Maynard. I got to ask you, are y'all better than your brother? I'll take that as a yes. We won't tell him. Okay. In basketball, Zayla Tenner was just a junior, but she helped lead Amarillo High to the Lady Sandys' second consecutive Class 5A state basketball championship in 2019. The 5'11" junior was a force in the paint as Amarillo High finished with a 37-4 record. She averaged 18.4 points and 5.7 rebounds, and in the process was named the Texas Association of Basketball Coaches Class 5A Girls Player of the Year. Goes without saying that she was also the District 3-5A MVP and the Globe News Super Team Girls Player of the Year. The state tournament in San Antonio showed the kind of impact that she can have. In the semifinals, a 47-42 win over Frisco Liberty, Zayla had a team high of 23 points and 9 rebounds. And in the finals, a 64-53 win over Fort Bend Hightower, she got into a little bit of early foul trouble. Had to sit out for too much of the game. She only had 8 points, but in a key 13-0 run in the fourth quarter, that was the difference. She had a team-high 5 assists, and she can beat you in so many ways. Well, she's a senior now, and Zayla is back for more of the same. And one reason the Lady Sandys are ranked number 1 in the state in Class 5A in their quest for a three-peat. The Hall of Fame Basketball Player of the Year from Amarillo High, Zayla Tenner. Cliff, I don't know if your camera can take 30 shots of me, but we'll see. In cross country, Ezekiel Kipchirchir transferred from Iowa Central Community College to West Texas A&M, and it didn't take long at all for the native of Kenya to announce his presence among the terrain of Division II cross country. He was named the Lone Star Conference Runner of the Year as WT won its 7th consecutive conference championship in the sport in October. Zeke, as he is known, won the individual title in the 8K race in 24 minutes, 56 seconds. He could have stopped just before the finish line and quickly scarfed down a sandwich as he still won by 26 seconds. He went on to the South Central Regional Championships, where he was named the Male Runner of the Year in winning the 10K in a time of 30:39:05. From there, it was on to the NCAA Division II Championships in November in Sacramento, California. Zeke finished 12th nationally, the highest finish in school history, covering the 10K in a personal best of 30:07:08. That helped lead WT to a 10th place finish, and with his finish, he was named All-American in cross country, the fourth buff to win such an honor. The Hall of Fame Cross Country Athlete of the Year, and accepting for him is WTAMU cross country coach Jake Krolik for Ezekiel Kipchirchir. Hey Jake, good to see you, man. Thank you very much. All right, let's get a picture of you. In football, you know, in these days of one back, five wide receiver, throw it 40 times a game offense, Tascosa quarterback Joseph Plunk was a refreshing throwback to a time when quarterbacks also controlled the game with their feet. And few in Texas Panhandle history did it like Joseph, who led the Rebels to back-to-back appearances in the Class 6A semifinals and quarterfinals. Running Tascosa's option offense with efficient precision, he was the catalyst on one of the top running offenses in the state. In 14 games in 2019, Joseph rushed for 2,546 yards on 335 attempts and scored 33 touchdowns. All of this in the highest classification in the state. Able to slip through the tiniest openings and read his defensive keys quickly and decisively, he was the top rushing quarterback in the state in Class 6A by over 1,000 yards. In earning second-team All-State honors, he was the number 3 rusher regardless of position in Class 6A and number 10 overall in the state. In averaging 182 yards a game on the ground, 5 times he rushed for more than 235 yards, including 40 carries for 309 yards and 5 touchdowns against Friendship. His fewest output in the first 13 games was 116 yards and a 55-7 win over Brownsville Hannah, but that's only because he hardly played at all in the second half. He also threw for 513 yards and 5 touchdowns. But it was running the football, where he rushed for 4,291 yards in 2 years to make him the all-time leading rusher in AISD history that made his indelible mark. In the last few weeks, he has announced that he has accepted a preferred walk-on position at Texas Tech. The Hall of Fame Football Player of the Year from Tascosa High School, Joseph Plunk. Congratulations. Well done. Great season. In golf, Luque Songprasert of West Texas and A&M, by way of Chiang Mai, Thailand, sort of set a preview of things to come as a sophomore in 2018, when she set a school record for best single-stroke average of 74.81. The fall of 2018 and the spring of 2019 served as a real breakthrough for Luque, who established herself as one of the top golfers in WT history. She set 5 school scoring records, including breaking her own scoring average, lowering it to 74.4. She won the Lone Star Conference Championship and led the Lady Buffs to their first ever conference crown by shooting a 3-under 139 over 2 rounds, the second best score in conference history. Luque went on to the NCAA Division II West Regionals, where she was the runner-up with a 54-hole total of 215. Things didn't go how she wanted at the NCAA Championships, where she would finish 50th with a 54-hole total of 243, but she has this spring to take it up another level for the Lady Buffs. She was all Lone Star Conference, all West Regional, and honorable mention All-American. The Hall of Fame Golfer of the Year from West Texas A&M, Luque Song-Presert. Congratulations, great season for you. Keep it up. In softball, Camden Callahan of Canyon, say that fast 3 times, would you? Put an exclamation point on an outstanding 4-year career in 2019 for the Lady Eagles. As a freshman way back in 2016, she was the 3-4A Newcomer of the Year, and then followed that with 2 all-district years, including in 2017 when her grand slam in the area round of the playoffs allowed Canyon to break the all-time national home run record by a high school team with 72. And that just set the stage for 2019 as a young Lady Eagles team advanced to the 4A regional semifinals. As a senior shortstop and the lone senior in the lineup, she flashed one of the most explosive bats in Panhandle softball history. In earning 3-4A MVP honors as well as the Globe News Player of the Year honors, Camden hit .566 in 132 plate appearances in which she struck out only 7 times. She had 65 RBIs and 64 hits. And of those 64 hits, 24 were home runs. According to the National Federation High School Record Book, those 24 home runs were 5th all-time in the nation, and her 60 career home runs were 4th. Playing the most demanding defensive position of shortstop, she had a .933 fielding percentage. Said her coach, Nicole Coffey, honestly, I've never had a player like Camden. She was so athletic and so competitive. Well, she is now a freshman on the University of North Texas softball team, having signed with the Mean Green in 2018, and their season is just getting underway. So accepting for her is her father, Reed Callahan, for the Hall of Fame Softball Player of the Year from Canyon High School, Camden Callahan. In tennis, Tauber Short and Jackson Harwell of Amarillo High have proven over the last 2 years and counting to be one of the top doubles teams in the state, whether that's in the spring or in the fall team tennis season. Last spring, they teamed together to win the Region 1 5A tournament to advance to the state tournament. In that state, they defeated a team from Dallas Highland Park in the quarterfinals and a team from Kerrville-Tivy in the semifinals before falling in the state championship match 7-5, 6-3 to a pair from A&M Consolidated. They finished the spring season with a 29-4 record and were 3-1 against another talented doubles team from Texas, the 4A state champions Asher Melton and Bryce Ware of Canyon. This past fall in the team season, they helped lead Amarillo High to the state semifinals against a team from San Antonio Alamo Heights. They won their match even though the Sandys as a team were narrowly defeated. In the fall, Tauber and Jackson were 20-2, giving them a combined record in the spring and fall of 49-6. The Hall of Fame Tennis Players of the Year from Amarillo High, Tauber Short and Jackson Harwell. Backtrack to soccer. James Pacheco of Palo Duro led the Dons to a breakthrough season in 2019, one in which they reached the Class 5A regional semifinals. James was center halfback for the Dons, who finished with an 11-7-2 record. Defense was his overwhelming strength, where he was instrumental in Paladuro allowing only 28 goals in 20 matches. He has a very high soccer IQ, said his coach, Irvin Johnson. He's the leader of our defense. I can always count on him to get everything organized when things aren't falling into place. James was the District 3-5A Defensive Player of the Year and was named All-Region's second team. He also earned invitations to the Texas Association of Soccer Coaches All-Star Game and in the local Panhandle High School All-Star Game. It should be no surprise that James, as Coach Johnson said, has a very high IQ. I know these ceremonies are about sports, but James' biggest accomplishment was in the classroom. He was the 2019 salutatorian at Paladuro with a four-year average of 101.491. And James is now a freshman down at Canyon at West Texas A&M. The Hall of Fame Soccer Athlete of the Year from Paladuro High School, James Pacheco. In track, when you have a season like the Canyon Lady Eagles, capping a dominant year with one of the most impressive team performances in Panhandle history and cruising to the Class 4A state championship, it really is a team effort. In high school track, where there are 17 events, athleticism is varied and it covers a lot of different skills. And that's no more evident than these co-winners, who both won 2 state titles and leading Canyon to a winning total of 86 points. The first co-winner was probably expected, if anything can be expected in sports, especially in track. Audrey Hughes dominated the shot put and discus like few have ever in this area. She was undefeated in her specialties all season. Early in the year, she set the all-time Panhandle mark in the discus by 10 feet with a throw of just more than 162 feet. And at the state meet, she had the best throw in the shot put of 45 feet 10 inches, winning the event by 2.5 feet. Later in the day, last May, she won the discus with a throw of 151 feet 9 inches, winning by 9 feet. That's the equivalent, really, of lapping the competition. And Audrey is signed and is currently competing at Texas Tech. Not quite as expected was Brianna Stewart in the distance events of the 3,200 and 1,600. Win a state title and a state team title, you kind of have to do what you're favored to do, like Audrey, but then you have to get some unexpected points too, like Brianna, who was only a freshman in 2019. On a Saturday morning in the 8-lap 3,200, she ran virtually stride for stride with Sunnyvale's Lily Jacob over 7.5 laps before pulling away over the last 200 to win by 5 seconds in 10 minutes, 57.9 seconds. It was her season best in the event by an unheard of 25 seconds. That evening, she was in the 1,600. The next to last event, and Canyon was in a pretty tight team battle with Texarkana Liberty Ilu. They needed as many points as they could get from her. Not content to kind of rest on that unexpected win in the 3,200, Brianna did the same in the 1,600, summoning her competitiveness and growing confidence over those 4 laps. With 4 battling for the victory over the last lap, and within 2 strides of each other, Brianna again outkicked the best in Class 4A, winning by 1.2 seconds in 5:08:07. 2 girls, 4 state championships, the Hall of Fame co-athletes of the year in track from Canyon High School, Audrey Hughes and Brianna Stewart. In volleyball, as a libero, Emerson Solano from Amarillo High has been a mainstay for the Texas Tech program the last 3 years, especially the last two. In the last two seasons, she has started all 60 matches, compiling 899 digs in the process. This past fall, the 5'8" junior was twice named the Big 12's Defensive Player of the Week. The first came against Oklahoma in late October when she had a career-high 31 digs in the match. The second came in late November when she had 18 digs against Iowa State and 16 against TCU. She finished second in the Big 12 with digs with 457 and was 10th in service aces in Big 12 play with 13. Emerson was also all-academic Big 12 on a team that finished 17 and 13 overall and 5th in Big 12 play. This is the second time that Emerson has been honored as Volleyball Player of the Year, the first coming when she was a junior at Amarillo High in 2015, 1 year before she helped lead the Sandies to the 2016 Class 5A Volleyball State Championship. The Hall of Fame Volleyball Player of the Year from Amarillo High and Texas Tech, Emerson Solano. Finally, in wrestling, Seth Dixon of Hereford has to be pretty darn good at wrestling to make football his second sport. As a tailback for the Whitefaces in the 2018 season, Seth rushed for 2,132 yards and scored 35 touchdowns to lead the Herd to the Class 4A quarterfinals. As dominant and impressive as he was on the field on football Friday nights, he was even more so on the mat during the winter. Seth won the Class 5A state title at 152 pounds in 2018, but then ballooned up 8 pounds as a senior and wrestled at 160 pounds. But it didn't matter at all. Seth finished his senior season with an unbeaten 31-0 record and repeated as state champion. He was a combination of quickness, strength, and was a technician. At the state tournament, he breezed through his first 3 matches, winning by technical fall in the first round and pins in the quarterfinals and semifinals. The state championship match was against a familiar foe, Jaden Heaton of Randall. You know, winning state, it's supposed to be tough. You're supposed to earn it. And Seth did in this all-Panhandle final, winning in a 3-1 decision. In his 4 years as a varsity wrestler, Seth was third at state as a freshman and sophomore, and state champion as a junior and senior. In his record the last 2 years on the mat, 72-1. Accepting for Seth is his father, Robert Dixon, for the Hall of Fame Wrestler of the Year from Hereford High School, Seth Dixon. Well, join me in once again in recognizing the Hall of Fame's Athletes of the Year for 2019. Now our 2 awards that are in one sense super and the other big. The Hall of Fame Super Team Award annually goes to the top team of the year regardless of sport. And when you include all of these sports at all of these levels in an area like the Panhandle, well, it has to be pretty special. And this one is. In April, affiliated minor league baseball returned to the city for the first time in 37 years. It was really more than love at first sight for the Amarillo Sod Poodles, the AA affiliate of the San Diego Padres, and the Amarillo and the Panhandle area. You see, season tickets exceeded expectations, and the suites were sold out quickly at Hodgetown, that sparkling gem of of a baseball stadium that's a long home run from here. More than 450,000 people attended games last summer, and at one point the consecutive sellout streak reached more than 30 games. Amarillo was second in all of the 30 AA teams in the country in attendance, despite having one of the smallest markets. But that's just half the story. The other half was what happened on the field. The Sod Poodles just never quite would go away. They did not lead the South Division until the final day of the first half, when they did, clinching a playoff berth. And in the playoffs in September, in the division best-of-5 round, they lost their first 2 games at home to Midland. You think, well, that's it. Season's over. It's a good run. No way they can sweep 3 in a row in Midland. But they did. And in the Texas League Championship Series, they found themselves trailing 2-1 to Tulsa, but won the next 2, one in dramatic fashion that you'll see in just a minute, to win the Texas League Championship in their first year. When the team arrived back in Amarillo that night, after midnight, there were several hundred on hand to greet them. It was a season no one would forget. Excepting for the Amarillo Sod Poodles, the Hall of Fame Super Team of the Year, the general manager of the Sod Poodles, Mr. Tony Enzor.
Well, I just found out today that I'm going to be saying a couple words, but this is going to be easy. But first thing I want to do is I want to thank the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame and Kids Inc. For your partnership and organizing this great event and recognizing these great athletes. You know, the one thing I think about, because I'm a father of 3 children, all of them athletes, and what they've gone through and the accomplishments that I'm hearing up here from these tremendous athletes, and not only these athletes, but all the athletes I see out there in the crowd. I know from a parent's perspective that most of you parents and most of you kids start at the age of 6, 7, 8 years old in your respective craft and your respective athleticism, and the number of hours, hundreds if not thousands of hours, hundreds if not thousands upon thousands of dollars, parents, that you put into your kids' sports. I just want to give you a round of applause and thank you for what you've done. Athletes and parents, you're tremendous. You know, to say that this was a super team is a little bit of a falsehood. We're a good team. I don't know if we're a super team. We finished the season with a 76-70 record, just 6 games over 500, which does not make you a super team. What made us, we had great athletes. We had, just so you know, we here in Amarillo, we sent 11 players straight from the Sod Poodles to the major leagues that played for the San Diego Padres. 11 Sod Poodles played in the major leagues this past year in our inaugural season. That's tremendous. But we had great athletes. But what took us from being a good team to a super team was our community. I can't tell you how many games we're behind 4, 5, 6 runs going into the 7th, 8th inning, and we still had 6,000 and 7,000 people still in the crowd. I just got the sense, I've never seen a connection like this between professional athletes and a community where those athletes did not want to let this community down. So the group that made this a good team to a super team was our community, because our players would not let you down, and we couldn't be more proud of that connection that was made. So on behalf of the entire Sod Poodles organization, our players, we just want to say thank you so much for this great honor. Thank you.
Tony, don't run off. The Hall of Fame Big Play Award goes to the athlete or athletes who execute what is determined to be the biggest play of the year. It's a combination of drama and what is at stake at the moment. It's poise over pressure. The championship game of the Texas League. It's the 9th inning. Sod Poodles last at bat. It's now or never. They trail Tulsa 3-1. Doesn't look good for the Mudville 9, but anyway, Amarillo loads the bases with a couple of walks and an infield single. And up steps not Mighty Casey, but center fielder Taylor Trammell, who came over to Amarillo in a trade in July. Well, Taylor worked the count to 2-2, and rather than me describe it, well, why don't you just watch it?
The pitch is a swing and a fly ball deep to right. Going back is Casey. It is a grand slam. A grand slam, and Amarillo has taken the lead 5-3. A celebration at home plate for Amarillo and their fans behind the third base dugout celebrating.
A rather subtle trip around the bases and an emphatic stomp on home plate for the grand slam that gave Amarillo a 5-3 lead on the way to an 8-3 win in the Texas League title. Well, Taylor's about to begin camp in Arizona with the Padres, and I know he doesn't mind accepting it again, and that's Tony Enzer for the Hall of Fame Big Player of the Year. That goes to Sod Poodle center fielder Taylor Trammell.
Last time, I spoke with Taylor a couple days ago and just let him know what was going on. And he wanted for me to tell you how much he's honored and excited to be a part of this tremendous day today, and how proud he was to be a part of the Amarillo Sod Poodles history and part of Amarillo. You know, one thing I'll tell you about that series that we're down there in Tulsa, the two pitches before that was a full count. We were in our 5th elimination game. So you don't play elimination games and win very often. But we had already experienced 4 before that day. So elimination game is you lose, you go home. Season's over. So we were playing our 4th. That was our 5th. Taylor Trammell, the count on that pitch that he hit out, and this will show you how unusual it was. It was a 3-2 count. I'm sorry, it was a 2-2 count. There were 2 outs in the top half of the 9th inning. So that was our last pitch. And we were down 3-1 in the game. And Taylor hits a grand slam to win it for us. The 2 prior pitches to that, and actually the prior pitch to it, he had gotten a couple bad calls from the umpire, and he turned around, and I've never seen a player go after an umpire like I had right before then. And Taylor's one of these kids. He's such a great kid. He's the kind of kid you want your daughter to bring home for a date, or you want your son to be like. He's that incredible of a person. But I've never seen him go after an umpire like I did prior to that grand slam. And all he was screaming at the umpires, this is a big moment. You got to be better than that. That's all he said. You got to be better than that. But normally that'll get you thrown out of a game anytime you turn around to an umpire. But he hit that ball, which I think not only changed the history for the season, but also changed the trajectory of a young man's career. He's currently in Arizona right now at Peoria in spring training for the Padres, and we hope he's going to be in the big leagues this next season. So on behalf of Taylor Trammell and the entire team, thank you very much.
Well, now we move on to a group that has sat here patiently, watching all these athletes of the year, marveling to themselves how well they must listen, how well they must take instructions, just how wonderful coachable they must be. And this is a group our athletes are thinking, it's people like us that make you look good. It's the coaches of the year for 2019. In baseball, we all know about Hodgetown. Do we ever? But you should know that the old home of minor league and collegiate summer baseball in Amarillo for nearly 60 years was doing okay in its own way, too. San Jacinto Christian Academy leased the stadium from Potter County in 2016, and not only did Mike Fuller and others have the old gal looking as good as it has in a long time, but the baseball played on it was pretty special too. In 2019, the Patriots returned an experienced team from the year before and figured to be a factor in Division IV in the TAPS organization. Winning district, yeah, they could probably win district, but beyond that, who knows? A lot of factors go into that. But San Jacinto, playing against a number of public schools in the non-district schedule and more than holding their own, kind of served notice of what was to come. The Patriots won district, losing only one time, and began behind the dominating right arm of Spencer Wallace. They won a pair of playoff series to move into the state tournament. In the semifinals against Dallas Covenant, Spencer pitched the Patriots to a 4-1 win. And in the championship game against New Braunfels Christian, 2-run doubles by Trey George and Spencer backed the pitching of Antonio Langen for a climactic 5-3 win and the state title. Mike Fuller may still be getting congratulatory texts 9 months later from former players. You see, in private schools, coaching is most often a volunteer position, where the love of the game and of kids outweighs their time commitment. Mike has been doing this for more than 20 years, winning more than 350 games, and every season inherits what amounts to adopted sons, which includes current Chicago Cubs pitcher Brad Wick. He's always strived to teach them more than baseball and more than winning, but when the wins come like they did in a 21-9 season in a state championship, well, that's really nice. The Hall of Fame Baseball Coach of the Year from San Jacinto Christian Academy, Mike Fuller. In basketball, there's an old saying that it's harder to stay on top of the mountain than it is to climb it. It's probably true. Coach Jeff Williams and the Amarillo High Lady Sandys have done both, and a matter of fact are continuing to do both. In 2018, the Lady Sandys won 41 of 43 games to win the Class 5A state title. You do that, and you immediately become the hunted, and you're going to get everyone's best shot the following year. And that's what happened to the 2018-2019 season, but Amarillo High had something going for it too. An experienced team and a head coach that knew how to get the most out of them. Amarillo High had a 3-game hiccup in November of 2018, losing 3 games over a 3-day span to fall to 4-3, but no worries. The Lady Sandys would go on to win 33 of their next 34 games to repeat as 5A state champions on the floor of the Alamo Dome in early March. They won by a lot, like 71 points in by district, and they won by a little, winning both regional tournament games over the Colony and playoff rival Mansfield Timberview by 2 points each. In the state tournament, Frisco Liberty fell 47-42 in the semifinals, and Amarillo High went back-to-back after a 64-53 win over Fort Bend Hightower and a 2-year record of 78-6. It was almost a year ago that happened, and sometimes that's a fuzzy memory when you're caught up in the now of the current season. And the now looks pretty good, too, with the Lady Sandys, ranked number 1 in the state and about to embark on the playoffs in their quest for a three-peat. But for 2019, the Hall of Fame Basketball Coach of the Year from Amarillo High, Jeff Williams. In cross country, Terry Davis helped inspire and motivate a young team that only one senior to the Class 2A Girls State Championship in November in Round Rock. The Groover Lady Greyhounds qualified for state at the Region 1 2A meet in October in Lubbock. Groover as a team finished second with 76 points behind first place Sundown's 62. They were led by Delaney Weaver's third place in the 2-mile in 12:10 and freshman Brianna Butler's 12:50. At the state meet the next week, Groover was able to switch the finishes with Sundown. The Lady Greyhounds won rather convincingly with 62 points to Sundown's 80 and San Saba's 84. All 5 of their scoring runners finished among the top 24 among the 151 runners who competed. 4 of them were in the top 15 and 2 in the top 10. And that again was Delaney Weaver again in third in 12:01 and Callie Conyers in 8th in 12:22. Nothing wrong with finishing 6th at state as Groover did in 2018, but state champion in 2019 is a lot better. The Hall of Fame Cross Country Coach of the Year from Groover High School, Terry Davis. You know, in football, usually when coaches take over a football program, you'll hear them talk a lot about, well, we need to get back to fundamentals, which is a nice way of saying that we were kind of sloppy, the team was the year before, and they didn't pay much attention to details under the old staff. Well, Aaron Dunham didn't say that when he took over the Dumas program in 2018 because, number one, he was on the staff the year before, and 2, his brother Chad, who took the Amarillo High job, was the head coach. And probably number 3, they were pretty schooled in fundamentals anyway. Dumas had been close to breaking through the previous 4 seasons. They had been 33-11 during that time, including Aaron's first season in 2018, but had the misfortune of losing the bi-district round, including a couple of close losses to very talented Lubbock Cooper program. But 2019 just had a different feel about it. The nucleus was there, led by quarterback Spencer Williams, running back Cito Rodriguez and Brian Mendoza, receiver Kyle Strobel, and a defense that would bend but not break very often. They swept their 10 regular season opponents, winning by an average of 26.2 points. That included the outright District 1-4A title for the second year in a row. They had to come from behind to defeat Wichita Falls Hershey 22-17 in bi-district, a game they statistically dominated, and it was Dumas's first playoff win in 22 years. After an area round win over Seminole, that brought up a battle of unbeatens with Dumas and Decatur in the regional round. With the game tied at 35 in the fog in Midland, Dumas turned a late interception into a 32-yard field goal by Ali Hart on the game's final play for a 38-35 win. For the first time in school history, even dating back to the state championship glory days of the 1960s, Dumas was 13-0. The Demons would fall to Springtown 56-39 in the quarterfinals, but the 13 wins also tied a school record. The Hall of Fame Football Coach of the Year from Dumas High School, Aaron Dunham. Great season, man. In golf, Meredith Jameson is steadily building a nationally competitive program with the West Texas A&M women's team. And the 2019 spring season was likely her best in her 14 years. The Lady Buffs won 5 tournaments during the regular season, most of any WT golf team, and that included winning the Lone Star Conference tournament in Abilene, a school first. WT broke the old conference mark of scoring in a single round with a 278, the old record 285, and overall score with 569, old record 581. Led by an individual champion, you met her earlier, Luque Songpresert, WT turned a 7-stroke deficit to A&M Commerce after the first round and won by 13 strokes. WT would host the West Regionals at the Amarillo Country Club and finish second, 4 strokes behind Dallas Baptist. That qualified the Lady Buffs to their 4th consecutive NCAA national tournament in West Palm Beach, Florida, where they would finish 10th, just missing the 8-team match play in the finals. Coach Jamison had only one senior from a year ago, and they potentially could do even better this spring. She's the Lone Star Conference Women's Golf Coach of the Year in 2019. She's also the Hall of Fame Golf Coach of the Year. From West Texas A&M, Meredith Jamison. In soccer, last spring in his 4th year at Canyon High School, Sergeant Charles Johnson guided the Lady Eagles to their best season in school history. Canyon won its first ever District 3 4A title and used that as a springboard 4 rounds deep into the playoffs to the regional semifinals. The Lady Eagles were young, but Coach Johnson was able to get youth to perform at a level that's not associated with a team so experienced in varsity play. Addison Warner, a center midfielder, was the only senior on a team that had 8 freshmen, including goalkeeper Madeline Cates, who had more than 150 saves in her first year in goal. In the playoffs, Canyon won its first 3 series over Clint, San Angelo Lakeview, and Fort Worth Castleberry by a combined 8-1 score before falling in the regional semifinals. He coached in Panhandle previously as the boys coach at Palo Duro from 2006 to 2012, and then was the head coach at Dodge City, Kansas for 4 seasons before coming to Canyon in 2016. The Hall of Fame Soccer Coach of the Year from Canyon High School, Sergeant Charles Johnson. In softball, Michael Rose of Bushland, been doing this for a while now, and his Bushland Lady Falcons put together back-to-back seasons in 2018 and 19 that haven't been seen in the Panhandle. Bushland advanced to the 4A regional finals in 2018 before falling to Vernon, and with an experienced group and dropping back to Class 3A, the 2019 season looked pretty promising for Coach Rose. The Lady Falcons were led by, among others, McKenna Driver and Jillian Howell, as their offense was stacked throughout the lineup. Bushland finished with a 36-7 record into the regional finals once again, and nearly all of those 7 losses were to teams much higher in classification. Bushland cruised to the 1-3A title, and in the playoffs, outscored Shallowater, Presidio, Abernathy, and Clyde in 8 games by a combined score of 139-53. Bushland fell to defending regional champion Brock in 3 tight games in the regional finals. And Brock would go on to lose to eventual state champion Raines by 2 runs, so really there wasn't much difference in Bushland and the state champion. For their 36-win season in 2019, the Hall of Fame Softball Coach of the Year from Bushland High School, Michael Rose. In tennis, there are a few things more challenging than basically having to kind of restart a program again to get it going again. But that's essentially what Hereford coach Cody Crouch confronted 7 years ago. The 2019 season, both spring and in the fall, was the biggest step yet in advancing the Hereford tennis program to being a factor regionally and statewide in Class 4A. Back in the spring, Cody had two singles players, both freshmen, Nicholas Villalobos in boys and Victoria Betson in girls, qualify for the 4A state tournament in winning their regional playback matches. That kind of set the tone for the fall team season. Hereford won the District 3 4A team title with a perfect 6-0 record. It was Hereford's first district title since the mid-1990s. Hereford received a bye in the bi-district round, but then rolled to wins over Andrews 10-2, Pampa 10-3, and Burke Burnett 10-2, before ultimately falling to Vernon in the regional finals, which is the last step for the state tournament. And Vernon would be the 4A state runner-up. Cody was recognized as the top Class 4A coach in the fall by the Texas Tennis Coaches Association. And today, he's the Hall of Fame Tennis Coach of the Year from Hereford High School, Cody Crouch. Great job. Great job. Good luck this year. In track, Kenyon girls coach Ray Baca has known for years just the right buttons to push and how to bring his team along at just the right time. And boy, did that ever happen in 2019. The Lady Eagles will go down as perhaps the most dominant track team ever from the Panhandle. Not only did they have depth and balance, but Coach Baca's team had quality, and it showed all the way through the state meet in May in Austin. They prepared for that meet by dominating the Region 1 4A meet in late April in Lubbock, winning with 134 points, which was more than second place Brownwood 71 and third place Lubbock Estacado 60 put together. Kenyon won 8 events in that meet, nearly half of the 17, and were second in another. Still, they figured to finish a likely second in Austin, behind speedy Texarkana Liberty Ilu out of East Texas. But over one long Saturday in May, Kenyon put on a team performance not seen from a Texas Panhandle team. In 8 events, almost every Lady Eagle stepped up and performed like she hadn't all season. You've already seen 2 girls who won 2 state titles each, Brianna Stewart in the 3200 and 1600, Audrey Hughes in the shot and discus. But Gabby Davis won the 800, just ahead of teammate Kelsey Dudley. Alyssa Harris was third in the 400. She anchored the 1600 relay to second place. And Mackenzie Grimes was fourth and fifth in both hurdles. The results was a convincing 4A state championship with 86 points, highest ever by a Panhandle team, and 14 more points than Liberty Ilu. Coach Baca has had some great teams and outstanding individuals over the years at Kenyon and first at Hereford, but nothing quite like this. The Hall of Fame Track Coach of the Year from Kenyon High School, Ray Baca. In volleyball, Hereford and Randall had different pasts as they both finished as state runner-ups in Class 4A and 5A. And for Hereford coach Catherine Forster and Randall coach Haley Burns, they are co-coaches of the year in their sport. As Catherine Bevel, she played on 3 state tournament teams at Hereford, 2 of them state champions. But recent past had seen a dip at Hereford, including a 15-20 record in 2018. But this past fall would be much different, even though against a tough schedule, it didn't really begin that way. The Lady White Faces were 5-9 on August the 17th, but soon began to hit their stride and stay that way. Hereford would go on to win 30 of their next 35 matches, and as a result, find itself in the state tournament for the first time in 11 years. Behind outside hitter senior Darcy Dodd, junior setter Rainey Avon, and sophomore middle blocker Tatum Stowe, Hereford would top Dalhart, and Andrews in the first two playoff rounds, sweep district rival Dumas, and advance to the regional tournament. In Abilene, the Lady Whitefaces swept state power Argyle and then Crum to advance to the state tournament. There in Garland, they swept Carthage in the semifinals before ultimately falling in the championship match to Lamar Fulshear. A final record of 35-15 and the first state tournament berth in 11 years. The Hall of Fame co-volleyball coach of the year from Hereford High School, Catherine Forster. Well, it was a bit of a different situation for Haley Burns, who left Caprock for the Randall head coaching position last May. It became vacant after Jason Culpepper, who guided the Lady Raiders for 13 years, including a spot in the 5A state tournament in 2019, he left to go to Bushland. The expectations are high at Randall, one of the premier 5A programs in the state. Haley didn't create the monster, she only had to feed it. But a good coach continues what works, but they also kind of want to put their own stamp on the program. And that's just what happened with Haley and the Lady Raiders. Behind the experience of Bree Ford, Zoe Parker, and Peyton Irvin, Randall finished with a record of 43-4. They won their last 18 regular season matches, including a sweep of rival Amarillo High for the District 3 5A title. The Lady Raiders really got on a roll in the playoffs, sweeping Abilene Cooper, El Paso Eastlake, taking 3 out of 4 from Moledo in the regional quarterfinals to advance to the regional tournament. They won a grueling 5-set match over Grapevine in the regional semifinals, and that brought up yet another matchup with Amarillo High for the third time, this time for a berth in the state tournament. Randall easily swept that match to return to the state tournament. Then a sweep of San Antonio Alamo Heights in the semifinals put them in the state championship match, but Lucas Lovejoy proved too much on this day. But in her first year at Randall, a 43-4 record and state runner-up on the 5A level, the Hall of Fame co-volleyball coach of the year from Randall High School, Haley Burns. And in wrestling, like he is every February, including this one, Randall coach David Carino is a busy man, and he wouldn't want it any other way. February is a month for regional and state tournaments. And with David having added the duties of coaching the girls to the boys a few years ago, there's sometimes just not enough time in the day. But last February, his Randall boys waged a fight with two-time 5A state champion Dumas. What became a two-team race at regionals, Dumas outpointed Randall 282 to 257. The Raiders, though, did qualify 10 wrestlers to the state tournament. And at state, the Raiders didn't have an individual state champion, but they did have 4 runners-up. Andres Mendoza at 120 pounds, Jonathan Ortegon at 126, Jaden Helton at 160, and Branson Britton at 170. Those points helped Randall amass 156 points, which was enough to hold off Dumas's 129, and Dallas Highland Park was third with a distant 78. Trying to double as girls' state champion, Randall at least did make it interesting. They were regional runner-up to El Paso Hanks, 159 points to 140. But in a balanced field at state, they finished 4th with 64 points to Hanks' 96 and a half. Sky Bravo at 128 pounds and Lily Mills at 215 were state runners-up. For winning a Class 5A boys state title and the girls finishing 4th, the Hall of Fame Wrestling Coach of the Year from Randall High School, David Carino. Well, join me once again in recognizing the 11 2019 Hall of Fame Coaches of the Year. You know, Special Achievement Awards were started a number of years ago to recognize athletes or teams who often did not fit into the 11 sports or whose achievements within them merited special recognition, thus the name. And then the Dick Hoover Award goes every year to a sports figure whose accomplishments reach beyond the Texas Panhandle, just as Hoover did when this local broadcaster became the Texas Rangers' first play-by-play radio man in 1972. So to present these two awards is Hall of Fame committee member Steve West. Steve?
Thank you very much. It's always my honor to present the Special Achievement Awards because if you look around this room, everybody here is special in some sport or achievement, one or another. But I think once you hear these stories, you will agree with us that these recipients are very deserving. First is Fatim Afesi from West Texas A&M. Afesi was voted the Lone Star Conference Female Athlete of the Year, becoming the 6th Lady Buff to receive this award since 1999. She ended the outdoor season with a national championship win in the long jump for the 3rd consecutive year. 3 consecutive years a national champion, being only the 2nd woman to ever accomplish this. Afesi was named Outdoor Field Athlete of the Year at the National Track Meet and led WT to a 4th place finish overall with 47 points. Fatim Afesi. Our next recipient is Jonathan Ortegon of Randall High School. Ortegon was a 3-time state champion in wrestling his freshman, sophomore, and junior years, so he was obviously the odds-on favorite his senior year. And he did cap off that senior season with a trip to the state tournament. But the week before the district meet, Jonathan tore his ACL and MCL ligaments in one knee. Now, I would bet in a group like this, there's been some torn ACLs. Raise your hand if you've ever torn an ACL, MCL, something like that. Only got one word for the youngsters out there, orthopedics, okay? Go into orthopedics and you'll be well. But Jonathan, with a torn ACL and MCL, just slapped a brace on his leg and went out the next week and won the district championship title. The week after that, wrestling on one leg, he won the regional championship title. He advanced to the state tournament in wrestling against the best wrestlers in the state of Texas, made it to the championship match, and lost in overtime. So just an incredible accomplishment. I tore my ACL. I needed help to get to the ice cream. I can't imagine wrestling at that level. But so our next recipient, Jonathan Ortegon, who now wrestles at the University of Nebraska. That was Jonathan's father, John, who was receiving for him. I apologize for that. He said he's not as good looking as his son. Our next recipient, Heston Kierstad from the University of Arkansas. Kierstad had another successful season with the Razorbacks in 2019. A graduate of Randall High School, Kierstad ended the season with 87 hits, 51 RBIs, and 17 home runs, the most on the team. Kierstad was honored as an All-SEC second-team outfielder and received an invitation to try out for the 2019 United States of America National Collegiate Baseball Team. He went on to be one of only 25 players selected for that national team. And I believe his mother, isn't that correct? Mrs. Kierstad is here to receive the award for him. Our next recipient had just an incredible career at McLean High School, Ben Crockett. Crockett capped a great career in 2019. He played in 14 football games, 224 rushes, 2,883 yards, 59 touchdowns. He also ended the season with 99 tackles, 6 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and 4 defensive touchdowns. Crockett was named the Offensive Player of the Game in the 2018 state championship game and followed that up by being named the Defensive Player of the Game in the 2019 state championship game. He was the Class 1A Player of the Year in Texas in 2018 and was a top 10 finalist for the Wells Fargo Dave Campbell Magazine Mr. Football Award in 2019, which encompasses all classifications. Ben Crockett, McLean High School. Our next recipient is extremely special to those of us on the Sports Hall of Fame committee. Luann Garrett is getting a service award. Garrett served as a member of the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame committee for 23 years. In 1996, she began working as an administrative assistant at the Amarillo YMCA, who then oversaw the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame. Part of her duties were to serve as the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame secretary. After leaving the YMCA, Garrett chose to stay on as volunteer secretary. Garrett would stay in that position for a total of 22 years, serving 1 additional year as a committee member before stepping down in 2019. Luann Garrett. John Mark told you some of the story about Dick Risenhoover and why he is the namesake of the next award that we give. Grew up in the vicinity of Childress, went off to the University of Texas, played baseball and basketball, went into the military as so many men did back at the end of the 40s, 1950 and that kind of thing. Came back to Texas, won a national championship on the baseball team there, but really made his mark in broadcasting, where he broadcast WT games, Gold Sox games, ended up doing some Dallas Cowboys and the Texas Rangers, as John Mark said. So the Dick Risenhoover Award goes to a regional athlete who brings national or international sports recognition back to the Panhandle. This year's recipient is Nathan Grimes, Jr. of Canyon High School and Texas Tech. Grimes finished second at the NCAA Division I Outdoor Championships in the 400 hurdles. He had a career best time of 48.71 and helped lead Tech to their first ever men's national championship. Not only was his time a school record, it was also the 5th fastest time in the world. Grimes is only a sophomore, and the Olympics are coming up, so we will undoubtedly continue to hear more great things from him. This year's recipient of the Dick Risenhoover Award, Norman Grimes. Sorry about that, Norman. Thank you.
As an individual or as a team, to reach the pinnacle, to go as far as you can go, is the ultimate achievement. In high school, that's a state championship, team or individual. In college, like West Texas A&M, that's a national championship. 3 years ago, we began to do something that should have been done a long time ago, and that's to recognize those who climb as high as you can go. And the D. Henry Memorial Award for Inspiration is annually one of the highlights of these ceremonies, for the winner embodies the best of what sports can offer, namely overcoming challenges and excelling despite obstacles. To announce the champions and present the D. Henry Award is Hall of Fame committee member Phil Woodall. Phil.
Thank you, John Mark. Certificates are somewhere. I'm not sure exactly where, but we're going to recognize them. We'll make sure they get to it. We'll start with our individual national champions. NCAA Division II Women's Outdoor Track and Field Long Jump. She's already been up here, but Fatim Afesi from West Texas A&M University. NCAA Division II Men's Outdoor Track and Field Long Jump Champion, National Champion, Abraham Coach Shinecki, thank you, of West Texas A&M University. Abraham. And now let's get to our team state champions across the state of Texas. In boys wrestling, 5A, the Randall Raiders, and Coach David Carino. In girls basketball, 5A, the Amarillo High Lady Sandys, and Coach Jeff Williams. In Class 1A, the Nazareth Swiftettes and Coach Taylor Schulte. In girls track and field, in 4A, the Canyon Lady Eagles and Coach Ray Baca. In 2A girls track and field, state champion, the Sunray Lady Cats and Coach Cody McDowell. In 1A, the state champion for girls, the Happy Cowgirls, and Coach Jimmy Moore. In baseball, in TAPS Division IV, the San Jacinto Christian Academy Patriots and Coach Mike Fuller. In girls cross country, in 4A, state champion, and their coach Ray. Do you ever get a day off, Ray, wherever you are? But cross country state champions, the Canyon Lady Eagles, and Coach Ray Baca. And in Class 2A, the state champions in 2A, the Groover, is it Lady Hounds, or what do y'all like to be called, Terry? Lady Hounds and Coach Terry Davis. Congratulations, Groover. And again, let's give a big old round of applause for all our national and state champions. John Mark touched upon it, but you can also read it in your book about what the award is all about on the D. Henry Memorial Award. This guy came from Fort Collins, Colorado. I think he came at 6'6", kind of skinny. And he's now playing in Germany, so he's not going to be with us. But this guy had a challenge. At age 10, he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And if you know what that is, that's usually called the juvenile diabetes. I've had type 2. Fortunately, I lost some weight and kind of have controlled that quite a bit. But type 1, this is something that you live with all your life. Got to be careful, because sometimes he's got to prick his finger and take a little blood sample 15 to 20 times a day and check that blood sugar, make sure everything's right, and make sure that level's proper. And talks about getting an insulin shot in my bum. That's what he called it, every day. And also carries that black bag full of insulin needles and insulin around with him. It's not fun. I know I had an insulin pump on, and it's not a whole lot of fun. But this young man came to West Texas A&M University, played all 4 years, led the Buffaloes to a great career. He's a great athletic kid, great academic kid. He was a senior, LSE Player of the Year. He was also a basketball times third-team All-American, D2 CCA first-team All-American, South Central Regional and Lone Star Conference Player of the Year. Started all 76 games his last 2 years. Averaged a double-double. That's the reason they call him Mr. Double-Double. And last couple of years, 14.3 points per ball game, 15.9 as a senior. And during the national championship game, which they lost to Ferris State 85 to 78, he scored 21 points and had 13 boards. It wasn't for a lack of effort for this young man. As a freshman when he came to WT, I was reading over the story that was written. He was a freshman, got some food poisoning. You get that on top of your D1 diabetes. He puked. This is the actual quote out of the newspaper. He puked so much he had to go to the hospital, but he kept coming back. He didn't give up. He kept coming back, playing great in the classroom and everything else. He's a fine young man. We did find out he is no relation to the actor Dennis Quaid. We did confirm that for sure. Accepting on his behalf for Ryan Quaid, our D. Henry Memorial winner, is WTAMU assistant basketball coach Quincy Henderson.
I talked to Coach Brown was going to, he's the head coach at WT, he was going to present earlier. He had a family engagement he had to get to, so he gave me a call about 12 o'clock and said, hey, could you mind accepting this award for Ryan? And my first question was, well, do I have to speak? And he said, nope. So here I am accepting on Ryan Quaid's behalf. Just quick about Ryan Quaid, was a phenomenal player for us, 4-year player, really put in the work. He was averaged a double-double through his high school career, his junior, senior year, and he came off the bench his first year. He started a little bit in his second year, and for a kid who had such a great senior season in high school, to do that, you just don't see that a lot now. And he was a special player for us, and he had type 1 diabetes. He was second all-time in scoring at WT. He was first all-time in rebounding, second all-time in wins, and double major accounting and finance as well. And now he's playing over in Germany in the top league there. And, I would talk the story about him throwing up his freshman year, and for a type 1 diabetic, to have that happen, I mean, your blood sugar levels are way out of whack. Those were the only 2 practices he missed his entire 4 years with us. He never let diabetes define him. It wasn't going to be his crutch. It wasn't going to be a reason for why he couldn't accomplish what he did. In fact, he took it the exact opposite. It was his fuel, and he wanted to prove everybody wrong. He wanted to prove, he had it diagnosed at a very young age, and I think he was told a lot that, hey, I don't think you'll ever be able to play collegiately. I don't think you'll be able to handle the rigors physically of playing at that level. And, in the first 2 years, you could tell in some practices where he was maybe a little down, he seemed drained. And the first 2 years, we'd ask him a little bit, hey, your blood sugar all right, everything going okay? And he would be offended that we would even bring that up. And in the last 2 years, we never talked about it. He always managed that. He always came to work. He was always on time. We lifted at 6:30 in the mornings in the preseason, 3 days a week. For 6:30 for a college athlete, might as well be 4:30 for a lot of them. That's really early for some of them to get up, but a lot of our guys are probably up at 6:15, throwing on a pair of shoes and sprinting over to the weight room to make sure they were there in time. He's up at 5:45. He's eating something. He's checking his blood levels. And that was the process throughout his entire career there. It's really impressive what he was able to accomplish given some of the challenges that he faced. And I know Lance Lanner had a great write-up, I think it was 2 years ago, about Ryan and his condition. And after that, we had a number of families reach out to us via email saying, hey, would it be okay if Ryan talked with our kid about diabetes after one of the games? And Ryan's got diabetes. You don't want to make him the poster boy for an athlete with diabetes. So we just asked him, hey, would you mind speaking with a couple of these kids? And he jumped right on it. And after the game, 15, 20 minutes, he'd sit down and talk to each one of these kids. And I know we've still got little Liv Moore, 8 or 9-year-old out of Houston, who's got a relation with the program. She reached out, and to this day, he still FaceTimes with her pretty regularly just to talk about some of the challenges that he faced and to inspire her to know that she can accomplish what it is that she wants to. Really impressive kid, so proud to have him. If you could have 15 of those guys on your roster every year, you would gladly take that. We're really fortunate to have had him, and thank you for acknowledging what he's done.
Well, I have found I had messed up, and under threat of impeachment, I am now required to tell you about the state champions individually in the state of Texas. And it's probably because I don't know how to operate my smartphone. When the smartphone is smarter than you, you're in trouble. Let's take a look at our individual state champions. In boys wrestling, from Dumas in 5A, 106 pounds, Axel Hernandez, and from Hereford in 5A, 160 pounds, Seth Dixon. In girls track and field, in 4A, discus and shot put, from Canyon, Audrey Hughes, and also 4A Canyon, 1,600-meter run and 3,200-meter run, Brianna Stewart. Also from Canyon, no wonder they won the state championship. In 4A, 800-meter run, Gabby Davis. And from Panhandle, in 2A, discus and shot put, and also from Panhandle, Bree Baker is the winner in discus shot put, and Macklin Land, 400-meter dash in Panhandle. Let's have a nice hand for them. Continuing on in girls track and field individually, in high jump 2A from Gruber, Bailey Maupin. From Vega, 100-meter hurdles in 2A, Zoe Webb. And in the 4x200-meter relay and the 400-meter relay from Sunray in 2A, Hope Castillo, Olivia Grace, Faith Castillo, and Caitlin Hernandez. In 1A long jump, Claude Laney Stepp. And 1A pole vault from McLean, Riley Peterson. In 1A triple jump from Groom, Sydney Ritter. And from Happy in 1A 400-meter dash, Riley Johnson. Let's have a nice hand for those. Next up in 1A from Happy, 4x100-meter relay, Kinley Johnson, Emily Berry, Riley Johnson, and Abigail Drake. And also from Happy in 1A 4x400-meter relay, Kinley Johnson, Emily Berry, Riley Johnson, and Bailey Bagaman. So let's have a nice hand for them. And in boys track and field, in 5A from Amarillo High, 800-meter run, Cooper Newsom. In Canadian 3A discus, Rhett Pennington. And from Happy in 1A 400-meter dash and high jump, Jackson Davis. Let's have a nice hand for them. And finally in tennis, in 4A doubles, in 4A in Canyon, Asher Melton and Bryce Ware. And from Nazareth and 1A mixed doubles, Cambry Hyman and Jake Gerber. So let's have a nice hand for our individual state champions. Apologize for the mistake.
Thank you, Phil. Well, now to the signature portion of today's ceremonies, and that is the addition of the newest class of 4 to the previous 183 into the Texas Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame. There's something unique about the Panhandle, and if you've lived here for any length of time, you know that. Maybe it's the location. Maybe it's because we're often an afterthought to the bigger populations downstate. Maybe it's because we have to fight a lot harder than for what we deserve. But there's a togetherness, a sense of oneness, of unity that exists here that's hard to find in most regions. You know, in sports, we have some bitter rivalries. We fight like cats and dogs on the field, the court, the mat, until we take on outsiders, and then it's all for one. That's never more apparent in the high school playoffs when there's only a few teams left and every town feels like it's their own playing. You know, there's a fierce pride here, perhaps born of where we are. But when an athlete or coach excels beyond our borders or within over a period of time, they really no longer have hometowns. They're just from here. They're a part of us. Their success is our success, and their heartbreak can be our heartbreak. You know, all of today's inductees at one time or another have been around more elaborate fanfare, been in more exciting locales, competed in or had their teams play in front of bigger crowds or brighter spotlights. And although this is very nice, it's not extravagant or elaborate because it's not us. But if we're not, it's not because we don't see this as any less important. It's just that we don't need all the frills. We're down to earth and simple, and so are our ceremonies. You know, when a person becomes a stranger in his hometown, something sad has happened. Someone has turned his back on the other. The past is forgotten, the roots are pulled up and thrown away, and part of him or her is gone forever and never to return. On the other hand, I can think of no better honor than from those from where you grew up, where your career started or where it continued for as long as it could. It's a place where you learned to play basketball, throwing an old ball at a coffee can, and went on to be a state champion and a mainstay in the college game. A place where your dad signed you up, you and your brother, to bowl just to have something to do, and you became a national champion. A place where you began running on play days at elementary school and became a state and national champion and one of the top sprinters in the world. And a place where your 40-year coaching career flourished at the end like she may never have imagined. You know, to be honored by your hometown says a lot about you as an athlete and a coach, but it says so much more about you as a person. So let's get to it, and let's install the 62nd class into the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame. When Gene Arrington lived at 507 North Hayes in the 1940s in Amarillo, he and his friends would cut out the bottom of an old coffee can, nail it to the side of a house, and find an old baseball or tennis ball and play their first basketball games. They graduated to an old neighborhood basketball goal on a dirt driveway, and then when they got to play in this new organization called Kids Inc., well, Gene and his friends thought that was about as good as it could get, except it was just the beginning. Gene found himself playing basketball as a sophomore and junior at Amarillo High School, the only school in town at the time. But in 1955, a new school, Paladuro High School, was opening. You know, Gene could almost see the gym from his home. And seniors in the Paladuro district, they had a choice. They could finish at Amarillo High or they could transfer to the new school. And their old junior high coach, Tom Gilley, was the new Paladuro coach. And he told them, you know, you guys have been Sandies long enough. It's time for you to play for the school on the north side. And three talented basketball players said, you know what, you're right. In that first year of Paladuro High School, Gene Arrington, along with Robert Hover and Robert Eccles, helped make history. In that first year, they won a state championship in 1956, the first athletic team in Texas to win a state championship in any sport in the year the school opened. The Dons would cap a season in which they would lose only one time by defeating Beaumont French 58-51 at Gregory Gym in Austin for the 3A state title. Borger coach Tex Hanna called them the best high school team he'd seen in 15 years. And Pampa coach Clifton McNeely thought they were the best team to ever come out of the Panhandle. They were tall and talented. Gene was 6'4.5", but he was a guard. And they were balanced. That season, Robert Hover scored 545 points, but Gene Arrington had 538, and Eccles had 487. Gene was first team All-District, first team All-State, unanimous All-State tournament, and was named team MVP. That summer of 1956, he was the only Texan to play in the prestigious high school Cage Classic in Murray, Kentucky. Later that summer, the new Lubbock Municipal Coliseum opened. And Gene was playing that year for the North in the Texas High School Coaches All-Star Game, which kind of rotated around the state. That year it was in Lubbock. And he had signed to play at Texas Tech. And Gene knew that no basketball game had been played there. There had hardly been any events at the Lubbock Municipal Coliseum. Both teams were allowed to practice one time. The North went first, which he was on. And so with a sense of history, he changed into his workout clothes as quickly as he could, went in there and hit one layup on one end, one layup on the other. And thus is the answer to a Jeopardy question. This quick-thinking basketball player scored the first 2 goals in the history of the Lubbock Municipal Coliseum. The Lubbock Municipal Coliseum was torn down last year. Gene, you're not torn down yet, are you? All right. But it was not the last basket he scored there. Gene thought seriously about playing for Doc Hayes at SMU, but Tech won out because it was close to home, because an old Borgo rival, Gerald Myers, was already there, and Gene had as much respect for him as any player. It was time to play with him and not against him. From 1957 to 1960, Gene played in 71 games for the Red Raiders in those first few years that Tech competed in the Southwest Conference. Known for his defense, he finished with 652 points, 409 rebounds. As a senior, averaged 12.8 points and 6.7 rebounds a game, and earning honorable mention all-conference. That year, the senior year, they played at Kansas in Allen Fieldhouse, which is kind of the birth of basketball. He and his old teammate Robert Eccles were at mid-court during warm-ups. He and Gene looked around. Gene said, "Robert, we are a long way from Paladero High School and a long way from throwing a ball at an old coffee can." After Tech, Gene spent 40 years with International Harvester Farm Equipment, later better known as Case. He will be married to his wife, Betty, 60 years this June. She's from Austin, and Gene said that she was so smitten with him at the state tournament that she followed him to Tech. That's what he said, so you might want to take it up with him after that. They have 3 adult sons and 10 grandchildren. One of the top basketball players from the 1950s from the Panhandle, from Paladero High School, Texas Tech, and now from Plainview, the 184th member of the Texas Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame, Mr. Gene Arrington. It's all yours.
Wow. Well, I got to tell you, my jump shot's changed a little bit since I'm 82 years old. I jump from the waist up now. Well, this is a great honor. I'm not an extemporaneous speaker like some of these guys are. My filing system's a little weak, so I got a couple of notes here, and I'm not going to take a lot of your time, I promise. My sons, they coached me all morning, and if I do what they wanted me to do, we'd be here till late in the evening. And we're not going to do that. John Mark has covered everything that I would have told you. And so I think what I'll do is start with some thank yous. I want to thank the Texas Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame. It's quite an honor, at 82 years old to get recognized. It's quite an honor anytime you're recognized, but at 82 years old, it's kind of special. I want to thank Kids Incorporated. I played in Kids Incorporated from this high up till you couldn't play in Kids Incorporated anymore. You get into junior high school and into high school, but it's a great program for kids, to keep them out of trouble. And we could have been in a lot of trouble. We spent most of our time bouncing a basketball. I want to thank the Amarillo Chamber of Commerce. I'm awful proud of Amarillo. I grew up here, and a lot of great memories here. I grew up on the north side of Amarillo, across the tracks, and I saw a lot of bad things, saw a lot of good things, but that can happen in any part of town. I'd like to thank my friends that are here, and I'd like to thank, I want to mention just the first 5 teammates. Robert Hover was a great basketball player. We got scholarships, by the way. We couldn't afford to go to college if it hadn't been for that. Robert Eccles and I went to Texas Tech. We felt like that fit us better. We could have gone to a lot of different places. Robert Hover went to University of Texas. Jim Reed, who is in this Hall of Fame, he's in this Hall of Fame because of not because of his basketball ability. I carried him through the state tournament. But he was a great coach. He got out of West Texas State and went into coaching, and he won 4 state championships, 3 of them at 2 different schools, back to back. And we all grew up on that side of town. Who did I miss? Jim Reed. Jim's dead now, and so is my best friend Robert Eccles. So there's only 2 of us left, myself and Robert Hover, and he's up in Virginia, living with his son. His health's not very good, but anyway, God has blessed me to stay alive this long, and I want to do something that might be a little different. I'm going to do it quickly, but God has blessed me with a great family. I didn't come to know the Lord till I was 42 years old, and I got saved on February the 12th, 1980. And he gave me one of the best wives that ever came out of Austin, Texas. I don't know how I got her. And I'm going to tell you a little bit. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my boys, but this is going to be quick. You're not going to be here long. I promise. My oldest son, he is a teaching pastor at Clear Creek Community Church in League City, which is between Houston and Galveston. He is a doctor of divinity, and he's written 2 books, and he's got another one called How to Disciple Your Children. That's a good thing. It's a good book. That's my boy. That's number 1 son. Number 2 son is a congressman, Lubbock, Texas, District 19. He's doing some great things in Washington, D.C., if you're conservative. He's doing some great work. He had a couple of meetings here in Amarillo while we've been here. Are you giving me this? My wife, she always tells me when I'm going too long. Number 3 son, my baby. He is president of American Bank of Commerce, and he's doing a great job. All of my grandchildren are going to be raised in the church. I'm so proud of them. Now, I'm going to do this real quick. You're not going to be here long. And I'm going to take a little bit different approach to what we were able to accomplish in 1956 for the first school, the first year that Paladura High School existed. We could talk about a lot of things. We could tell a lot of stories. But I'm not going to do that to you. You'd get bored if you're not already bored. But I'm going to take a little different approach on how important what we did and how it affected where I grew up. Winning the state championship meant more than just winning a basketball game. It gave a sense of pride to where I grew up, across the tracks, on the north side of Amarillo. It gave our first year high school a sense of pride that they followed us all over the state, winning basketball games. beating people we probably shouldn't have beat, but we did. It gave our students a great sense of pride. Some of those people on the north side, you know, they're blue-collar workers. Some had a little bit, some had a little bit more, and some had a little bit less, but they're good folks. And what did I learn from growing up on the north side? How to survive. Anyway, I'm very proud of this honor in the Panhandle Hall of Fame. God bless you.
Gene, why don't you go ahead and take this?
Thank you.
Congratulations, Gene. Congratulations. You know, who knows what kind of life's path Mike Scroggins would have walked had his family, when moving from Seagrave, south of Lubbock, to Amarillo when he was 12 years old in 1976, had they just not bought a house near Western Bowl. The twin boys, Mike and Mark, like any 12-year-olds, they weren't crazy about moving to a place they weren't familiar with. They didn't know anybody, and so they moped around that summer before school started. Their dad, who had bowled a little bit himself, kept noticing Western Bowl when he would leave to go to work at the Harrington station at Southwestern Public Service. So just to give them something to do until school started, he went to the nearby bowling alley and inquired and signed the boys up for the summer league session that was about to start. They'd never bowled before. Well, Mark hated it. And as for Mike, well, he hated it even more. When they first started, they didn't know how many games you even bowled in league play. They weren't sure sometimes on how to score. No one had ever coached them. Mike couldn't even break 100. They wanted to quit, but their dad said, look, I paid for the whole summer session. You're playing. You're not quitting yet. And so they did. And they went back for the next session and the next. And after 2 years, they started to get a lot better. They would bowl, got to be where they would bowl in league play on Saturday mornings and then rush home and watch the great Earl Anthony bowl on the PBA Tour on the Wide World of Sports. All of them were left-handers, and so they tried to emulate Earl Anthony. And that was really their coaching. Mark initially was the better of the two. Mike just wanted to be as good as his twin brother. And when he could finally compete with Mark, his confidence started to grow. By age 17 at Western Bowl, he was shooting for his first perfect 300 game. He's in the 12th frame. Of course, you need to strike. And he left 2 pins standing, a 298. Well, he was crushed, thinking, well, I'll never be in that position again. 4 days later, he got his 300. Since then, he's bowled more than 120 perfect games. As I say, he got better. A 1982 graduate of Canyon, Mike went to college at West Texas State, which just happened to have one of the best college bowling programs in the country. In 1985, WT attempted to become the first men's team to win every tournament, including the national tournament. They almost did, finishing second to Wisconsin lacrosse. WT got bowlers from all over the country. And as a young bowler, Mike was a teammate of Mark McDowell and Jack Jurek, who'd gone on to have success in the Professional Bowlers Association Tour. If they could do it, he figured maybe I could too. In 1989, he got his PBA Tour card, but since he didn't have enough points, he had to compete in what they call the Rabbit Squad, which was kind of some cutthroat competition early in the week of the tournament just to get into the tournament. He got out of that Rabbit Squad only 5 times out of 20 in that first year. Mike also struggled in 1990, 1991, and he lost his sponsorship in 1992. His dad told him, he said, look, I've saved enough money for you to bowl in 4 tournaments, the first 4 tournaments, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Sacramento, and Grand Prairie. Well, he was horrible in L.A. and not much better in Vegas. He called his dad. He said, "Look, I'm coming home." And like his dad did when he told Mike and Mark to keep playing in that summer bowling league in Amarillo because he'd paid for it, he told Mike, "Just play the other 2 tournaments and then you can come home." So he went to the Sacramento Open in 1992, and like a Disney movie, he won the thing. To say that was a turning point in his career is pretty accurate. It gave him that shot of confidence that he badly needed. And over the next 18 years on tour, he would win 8 tournaments, 2 of them majors, the USBC Masters in 2005 and the US Open in 2009. Like in golf and tennis, it's the US Open in his sport, and Mike called winning that the pinnacle of his career. In 2010, he tied for the most points in the race for PBA Bowler of the Year, only to lose on a tiebreaker. In 2015, while bowling on the PBA 50 Tour, which is for seniors, he won 3 tournaments. In his PBA career, he had $1.45 million in winnings. And a call came in 2016 that he said caused him to break down in tears. He was elected to the PBA Hall of Fame. Injuries with his knee and ankle have caused him to retire professionally. His daughter Maggie, a junior at Randall, is on the high school bowling team where her dad is coach, making him easily the most overqualified high school bowling coach in the country. He and wife Melanie have 2 other children, Ross and Will. The greatest bowler in Texas Panhandle history, and in his 2nd Hall of Fame, the 185th member of the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame from Amarillo, Mr. Mike Scroggins. Mike, congratulations, man. Very well. Let's look at the camera here.
Thank you, John. Just hearing that story kind of got me all choked up there. Oh, man, this is such an honor. First off, I'd like to thank Kids Inc. for having us. This is an honor that when I was the Dick Reisenhoover Award winner twice, I always looked over at the Hall of Fame inductees those 2 years, and I said, well, you know, maybe one day I might be able over on that side of the aisle instead of on this side. But I'd like to congratulate the other inductees that are going in with me. I think I couldn't ask for any better company for this year. I do have some notes. I promise it'll be really quick. I just want to thank some people that are here today and that really had an influence on my career. First off, I have to give it to my mom and dad. They're both here today. Kay and Eddie Scroggins, they're right here. And let me tell you, when you guys moved us from Seagraves, you had 2 upset 12-year-old boys. But I'm so glad you made that decision for us, or I wouldn't be up here today. Thank you. And they traveled all over the country with us, rooting us on, and we really appreciate it, Mark and I. And speaking of my brother Mark, he was my biggest competition growing up, and he's the West Texas A&M bowling coach, and he's unfortunately at a tournament right now with them, so that's why he couldn't be here today. But I know without him, I wouldn't be up here either. His lovely wife, Rebecca, is here today. Thank you, Rebecca, for coming. And I'd like to thank my 2 aunts, Aunt Paula and Aunt Carol, for being here today. It means a lot to me. Thank you. And I have to thank people at Western Bowl. I mean, that's where I grew up ever since I was 12 years old till I still bowl there today. And I threw my very first bowling ball there, and I still bowl league on Wednesday nights with my wife there. I'd like to thank Randy Webb. He's the manager, or he was the manager. He just retired. And Mildred Anthony just retired there. Lynn Crabtree just retired there. And Richard Smurl. And then Jonathan Lawson, I think I see you back there. He's the manager now at Western Bowl. If you ever need any parties done or anything, just call him up. He'll take care of you. And Kathy Bowman, she's secretary at Western Bowl. In fact, Stacy, when she got a hold of me for the Hall of Fame, she actually called Western Bowl to get a hold of me. That's how it's my second home. And I'd like to, thank the media guys that covered my career. Les Giles, when I was at West Texas State, he wrote up all the stories for me. And then Lance Leinert wrote stories, when I was out on tour in the 2000s. And then Lee Baker, he really helped a lot covering bowling, putting it on TV. And, the biggest people I have to thank is my lovely wife, Melanie, and my daughter, Maggie. She's here today. My two boys, one's bowling with my brother. He bowls for WT. And, of course, my other son, he forgot to ask off for work, so he's having to work today. But Maggie actually bowls for me at Randall. We're undefeated this year in district, so the boys and the girls teams. So hopefully we'll do real good this year at regionals and state. And but I have to thank my wife, Melanie. She went through the hard times and the good times and stuck with me. And I couldn't have done anything without you up here. So thank you very much. And I'd like to thank my two junior bowlers that I bowled with, Kirk Aduddle and Brian Crabtree, for being here today. It's just, means a lot to me for you guys being here. But I do have one story to tell, and this is all I'm going to do. And I told it yesterday, so you guys have already heard it. So when I bowled on tour for 26 years, and every tournament I bowled in, we always had this event called the Pro-Am events, where a pro would bowl with the amateurs. And I'd go down, and when I first started on tour, I'd go down and meet the amateurs, and I'd tell them my name, and the people would ask, they noticed my accent, which I don't see it, but I guess they do. But they always ask, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Amarillo, Texas. And every time people would say, oh, is that down by Dallas or Houston area? And I said, no, not even close. I said, we're up in the top of the Texas, up in the panhandle part. So, this went on for years. You just having to tell people where I'm from. And when I started, winning some, and people were knowing my name, and later in my career, people would, I'd go down to the people, and they'd ask me, where I'm from, and I'd say Amarillo, Texas. Instead of asking where's that at, they'd say, well, have you ever ate that 72-ounce steak at Big Texan? I said, no, not at all. But I did realize that when people said my name, Mike Scroggins, they related to Amarillo, Texas, and I'm very proud of that. So I'm just so proud to be part of the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame. Thank you very much.
Congratulations again, Mike. It's one of those end-of-the-year play days that elementary schools always have in May. It's school's about to be over. Kids got all this kind of energy. Most of them just want to get them outside and run them to death. And North Heights Elementary had one of those in the 1960s. Wardell Gilbreth, probably third or fourth grade, but he got thrown in with a bunch of older kids, and darn if he didn't beat them all. And that was kind of the sign of things to come. As he got to Carver Junior High, coaches saw his potential. Carver High School had closed the previous year, but the high school coaches still worked in the junior high. And Wardell learned under legendary coach Johnny Allen. Coach Allen taught him form, how to come out of the blocks, the little things that are big when a race is decided by a few tenths or a few hundredths. At Amarillo High in the early 1970s, he worked under Coach Ron Gillum, who brought out the best in him. Every athlete needs a coach like Coach Gillum, whom Wardell said, "He saw something in me that I did not see." Until his senior year, he was just trying to be the fastest runner in the city. With Ralph Scott running at Palo Duro, that was going to be tough. But as a senior, many felt that this was just his time now. He played basketball and came out for track a bit late, but still, Coach Gillum and some other people as well pegged him as one of the top 10 sprinters in the state. His first track meet in 220, he was beaten by a runner from Perryton. And he was beside himself. He told his coach, he said, "You lied to me that I was among the top track runners in Texas. I just got beat by a white guy from a town I've never heard of." And they told him, "Well, look, Wardell, you're not in track shape yet. You're coming out of basketball." And Wardell resolved that no one was going to work any harder, and he wasn't going to lose again, and he didn't. At the state meet in Austin in May 1972, he was in the Class 5A 220. The state meet is one race, no qualifying. And running out of lane 6, he made up the staggers on the two in front of him by the straightaway. He never looked back, and he said, "Ran if my life depended on it." He crossed the finish line in 21 seconds flat, one of the fastest times in state history. Still an Amarillo High School record. It would be 48 years before another male runner from Amarillo High would win a state title on the track. Wardell would go on to run track at New Mexico Junior College in Hobbs. At NMJC, he won the National Junior College title in the 220 in 1973 and set a junior college record in the process in 20.6 seconds. Since meters would soon become the accepted distance in all associations and federations, Wardell set a national junior college record in the event in yards that won't be broken. In his time at New Mexico Junior College, Wardell was also national runner-up in the 100 and ran a leg on the mile relay that finished third nationally. Wardell was one of the first New Mexico Junior College sprinters to compete in multiple USA and World University games, including one in Moscow. He was the junior AAU international champion in the 220 in 1973, and because of all of that, Wardell was inducted into the New Mexico Junior College Hall of Fame in 2018. The sprint coach at the World University Games was a man named Willie Williams, who was heading to coach at the University of Arizona. Wardell needed a four-year college to go to, and that developed a bond. So he went to Arizona, where he was an All-American in 1974, 1976, and he was third in the 200 at the NCAA meet in 76. 1976 was also an Olympic year, and having the fastest time in the world eventually that year in 20.27, he was certainly focused on the Olympics. He and his coach decided to go for a world record in the semifinal of the Olympic trials in Eugene, Oregon. Not just win it, go for it. That would kind of put the rest of the competition on notice. But about 30 yards from the finish and leading, he pulled his hamstring. Almost a lock to make the Olympic team and certainly a very good chance to win a medal and perhaps gold. His Olympic dream was shattered. But there was still the 1980 Olympics. Wardell was no longer competing collegiately, but a meeting was arranged with Boone Pickens of Mesa. And one Sandy to another, he agreed to sponsor Wardell over the next 3 years in international competition. It was going very well for him, competing all over Europe. He won 3 gold medals at the Spartacade in Moscow in 1979, which is sort of a run-up for the Olympics there the next year. But the U.S. boycott of the 1980 Olympics, announced 5 months before the games were to begin, ended that dream as well. As Wardell said, you can make a lot of plans, but you can't plan for boycott. In due time, Wardell began the next phase of his life. He and his wife, Audrey, who he met at the University of Arizona, own and operate an advertising marketing agency in Houston, Gilbreth Communications, that will be 30 years old this May. It is one of the largest and oldest African-American businesses in Houston. They have 2 grown daughters, Brianna and Stephanie, and 1 grandson. The finest track sprinter in Texas Panhandle history, from Amarillo and now from Houston, the 186th member of the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame, Mr. Wardell Gilbreth. Congratulations. Let's get a picture here, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Sports Inc. Thank you for nominating me. But I'm happy. But I like to start something out different. Could my family stand up? All of my family and friends. I also want to say thank you to all of y'all for being here for me. You've always been there for me, and I love you dearly. I'm going to pass the torch on to the rest of them. I'm retiring now. I'm in the Hall of Fame, so someone else got to take over. It's been a long time. It's been a long time. But I'm proud to be from Amarillo. It's been a hard road. Hadn't been one that's been easy. But it's been a good road. God had something set for me that I didn't know about. My wife. She's something else. I've been with her 40 years now. We've been in business 30 years, so you know I know what to do. I listen to her. No, I have a lovely family. My daughter, Stephanie, Brianna, my son-in-law, Bryce. I love y'all. My brother's been with me all my life. You know, it was his decision he said, you need to leave. I'm going to stay at home, take care of grandma and the rest of the family, and you leave and go to school. Aaron, I love you. Thank you for pushing me out. My cousins, my oldest cousins, Dorothy and Pearlie, oh, man, you know, they've been there. I mean, I didn't have it. Thank you. They've been there for me. My family's been there for me. My father, my mother. My father passed away at the age of 35. Left my mother with 7 kids. Of course, 7 kids you can't remarry. She didn't remarry. She took care of all of us. But it took the rest of my family to pitch in. And that's what I'm saying. They're all here today. Some of my sister, Juanetta, my brother, Dwayne, mother, sister, Patricia, my mother, Billy Faye, my father, Louis. They're all deceased now. But I got my other family. My family's here. My cousins, my aunties, everybody's here. And I just love y'all. They inducted me today, a while back, into the Hall of Fame, but I thought I was already in. No lie, I thought I was in. They called me and they said, Wardell, you got elected into the Texas Hall of Fame, Panhandle Texas Hall of Fame. I said, what? I said, we selected you. You're Hall of Fame. I said, no, I'm already in. They said, no, you're not. I said, you need to check. Check and see. I think y'all selected me a while back. I've been in for a while now. I said, no, we know that you're not in. I said, you need to check because I was there. Well, I found out later I was Athlete of the Year in the Texas Panhandle Hall of Fame. I thought I was in the Hall of Fame, I swear. So, to get this honor now, I've been in the Hall of Fame for 20 years. So it is indeed an honor. It's a blessing to be officially in the Texas Hall of Fame. But I swear, guys, I told everybody, I'm in the Texas Hall of Fame. I've been telling them that, and I had no idea that I was just an athlete in the Texas Hall of Fame. My coach, Coach Gillum, he's been my rock. He's been there with me for years. Even today, he tried to tell me what to do. Wardell, now just be patient and do this, do that. Coach, come on. But he's been coaching me. He's been like a father to me, and I love you, Coach. Thank you. I don't have too many things to say. I'm proud. They said a lot. But that kid from Perryton, he's the reason why I'm up here today. Because I worked my butt off after that. Those guys that were behind me, back then we had a cinder track. Your face was messed up. You ate cinder, gravel. I never would let anybody get in front of me. No one was going to be in front of me, so you were always behind me. That means you had to eat cinder, gravel, or whatever. You come away from there with a bruised up face, Tim Shelton, Shelton? He never would run. He was white. He come away from there and he was all beat up. He's like, what else stop this? All right, Shelton. You look at his face, it's all patched up, and I just laugh. Aaron stopped running with me. He's like, no, I'm not going to ever run with you, But that's what it's all about. It was to work hard, to work harder than anybody. Some people say do 110%. I say do 150% because you have to be the best. It's all about winning. Now, I just found out that I lost regional. Coach told me, he said, look, you really lost. You didn't remember that. Well, for years, this guy named Willie Johnson from Borger, we argued back and forth. We go on trips together, and he's been telling me, I beat you. And I know you didn't. You didn't beat me. I won. Well, Mike, where's Mike? Mike Higgin. Mike back there in the back somewhere. Mike gave me some papers. I got beat in regional by a half a step. They tell you how I feel. And I had to call him up and I apologized to him. I said, man, I apologize. You did beat me. And he said, well, I've been telling you that. He said, I knew I beat you, but you just didn't want to believe that. I went in total vision. I was like, look, I just knew I was going to state, so it didn't really matter to me. But in state, I did beat him. I never saw him, so, but I ran because I love the sport. Whatever it took to beat you, that was what my goal was. It had nothing to do with times. I didn't even know I won what the time was in state. I know I won state. I just kept running, It's all about running, and I was scared. I didn't want no one to beat me. I was scared someone beat me. I was like, oh, my God. But it's an honor, but it's more of an honor to have my family here. I love y'all guys, and just being here and supporting me. And I thank you all, and I thank the Hall of Fame, so God bless you. Thank you.
Wardell, as I told you yesterday, we do some athletes are so great, we do induct them twice. It's just the second time they're so old they forgot they went in the first time. So in 10 years, when you get a call at age 75, just act surprised, okay? Janine Udy is not getting inducted this afternoon because of her talents in synchronized swimming, although she has participated in that sport unlike everyone else in this room. But that's what happens sometimes when girls' sports are few and far between while growing up in Hermosa Beach, California, and Midwest City, Oklahoma. Still, as Janine Boydston, she graduated from Star Spencer High School in Oklahoma City in the early 1970s. She then wanted to do two things, really. She wanted to teach in the classroom, likely social studies, and then she wanted to be in the gym the rest of the day or on the track. She graduated from Southwestern Oklahoma State University in Weatherford in 1977 with a dual degree and dual children. She and Gary Udy met on a blind date between her freshman and sophomore years, got married, and had Sarah and Wendy before graduation. Gary's first job out of college took them to Odessa, and Janine interviewed for a job with the Ector County ISD. 2 days later, she began coaching everything at Crockett Junior High. Just a junior high coach. Well, that's a stigma that, if it hasn't completely died by now, needs to. For Janine, the learning curve was quick. She soaked up all the knowledge of two coaches there, Dorothy Johnson and Olga Venegas. And after 2 years there, coached at another junior high, Bonham Junior High, for the next 15 years. She coached volleyball, basketball, track, cross country, gymnastics, and benefited from a school district philosophy that every sport was important. You know, junior high is where the foundation is laid. And for Janine, this is where fundamentals are ingrained and coaching 101 occurs. No apology needed for coaching in junior high for 17 years. I absolutely love coaching junior high kids, she says. It is the best. After that, Janine was head girls basketball coach for 1 year at Bonanza High School in Las Vegas. And then back in Texas, near the Metroplex, she coached at Justin Northwest High School for 3 years. Not really fans of the speed of life in the Metroplex, when Gary got an offer to work in Amarillo, they jumped at it. Janine was back in junior high, this time at Horace Mann Middle School in Amarillo. She was more, though, than familiar with the renowned Amarillo High volleyball program from her time in Odessa. And being with a winning program always kind of burned inside her. So when Amarillo High coach Jan Barker asked if she were interested in an assistant's position, she didn't have to ask twice. For 13 years, Janine was riding shotgun in the Porsche that was Amarillo High volleyball. The Lady Sandys won 5 state titles in that span. And Janine coached JV, she scouted, she soaked up really all she could from Coach Barker. She said, I know she got tired of me because every time she stopped, I ran into her back. But I wanted to listen to everything she did. Things like game management, taking kids to the next level. You know, Janine could have been happy finishing her career as an assistant, but inside of her, too, also burned the idea of what she could do as a head coach. She applied for the job at Bushland, but didn't get it. Believing things happen for a reason, she bided her time, and when the job came open again in 2013, she went after it, and this time she got it. It didn't take long to make a big impact. In that first year of 2013, Bushland won the 2A state championship with a dramatic 5-set win over Schulenburg. 2 years later, now in Class 4A, where the competition is tougher, they fell in the 4A state finals to Argyle, but came back the next year in 2016 to win the 4A state title in 3 sets over that same Argyle team. In that 2016 year, though, Janine coached in the regional finals to go to state against a team from Decatur, which just so happened to have her granddaughter, Haley, as the setter. Kind of awkward. Janine said some of the family thought that Grandma may not coach as hard in that match, and yeah, right, that was going to happen. After the 2017 season, Janine announced her retirement after 41 years as a coach. Her record at Bushland, 217 and 32, an 87% winning percentage. Most of those defeats against higher classification teams. Her district record, 48 and 0. The 187th inductee into the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame. And from Amarillo, Miss Janine Udy.
Thank you so much. I want to thank the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame. I want to thank Kids Inc. for this incredible honor. I'm going to make this short. This is not like 5 pages. It's written big and on one side. When you get old, you got to do that. I'm the 187th member to this prestigious club. In 1970, Lamita Odom from Dimmitt was the first woman inducted in the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame, and so I'm the 24th woman to come in. This is truly so humbling, and it is a sisterhood as far as I'm concerned. Such notable, legendary names of coaches that I know: Brenda Kitten from Hereford, Sarah Carthel, Jan Barker, and then just to be in the same class and the same club with that sisterhood is just an incredible honor to me. It's been a blessed career, and this is an incredible end to my career. I'm so grateful to be on the list with these incredible coaches, athletes, sports writers, and contributors to athletics in the Panhandle. And they've influenced not just the Panhandle or just the state of Texas, but they've been all over the world. More than 60% of volleyball state championships are won in the Texas Panhandle. And when you look at the number of teams, and that's 1A through 6A, then that's an incredible percentage of winners up here. There are many people that contributed to my career and that taught me the things I needed to know. One of the first guys that I learned a lot under was the legendary John Wilkins at Permian High School. He taught me that just being good is never going to be enough. You know, you've got to always challenge your kids and take them to the next level. And he was a champion at that. He was a champion of scouting. He could detect every little movement that was different when things went different. And so he taught us that, and he was an incredible teacher. He taught us the importance of track, that any athlete needs to be able to run and jump, no matter what you do. And so he took junior high coaches and made sure that we taught every athlete in track every single event. And he was just an incredible leader. The second man that taught me everything was Bill Heron. And he taught me that I could balance a coaching career with a teaching career and a family. And he was great at that. And he understood that as a woman coach, when I go home, the expectation socially is that I need to cook dinner and make sure the kids get their homework done and all those things. And he really got that. He understood that. So his expectation wasn't that you hung around the gym after practice, you know, that you went home. So I want to thank the coaches that I worked with at Amarillo High. Jan gave me confidence and gave me assurance of things that we taught to different players. She allowed us as assistant coaches in a varsity practice that we had the right and the knowledge to walk onto the court and coach those kids. Kirk Stokes, he and I worked together since my first day at Amarillo High, and we still scout together, and he is an incredible person to be on the road with for 16, 17 hours at a time and just to go scout. It's just one of those things, it's a comfort thing. My assistants at Bushland were the greatest asset to that program. Glennis Strand, Michael Rose, Amanda Martin, Amber Parkhurst, Caitlin Wilhelm, Madison McKean, and Scott Sims. They're the reason why we won what we did. They're the reason why our program was successful. A head coach to me is a small part of that. The junior high coaches that we had were unbelievable. So many times I've heard head coaches in a situation say, well, they're just junior high. In Odessa, you were never just junior high. You were an incredible part of the program. You were the one that could make or break the high school team. You were the one that got to teach them the love for the game. So don't ever discount your junior high coaches. You know, a lot of people say that it starts at the top, and I don't believe that. It starts at the bottom. It starts with the substitute on the B team or the C team or whatever your program is. That's where it starts. Because you have to work hard. You have to work so hard to keep great, moral, influential women coaches. And we need them desperately in our, in our careers, and we need them in our lives. So I want to also thank my family, because they're the true sacrificial lambs in all of that, on all of this. My oldest daughter, and they're sitting right here, is Sarah and her husband Wade. And there's something about our family. We kind of like to make money on our own instead of work for somebody. They have a law office in Keller. And my granddaughter Haley, and yes, she's the one that was the setter at Decatur. That was the toughest game in 41 years I've ever coached. It was heartbreaking. The emotions were raw. And I had to sit there the night before and plan my strategy to beat her. And that was tough. My youngest daughter, or our youngest daughter, Wendy and Jason Liebert, and they own a engineering firm in Plano, so they like to do that too. My other granddaughter, Ellie came to one day and said, Mimi, though I'm Mimi, I don't want to play volleyball. I just want to show a lamb. I'm like, what? So if you've never been to a stock show, it is a whole different world. There's no scoreboard. So I don't know. She works so stinking hard at this. And that's fine with me. If she doesn't want to play volleyball, that's fine. I want her to be good at what she does. So I said I'd buy her first lamb, so I'm on Craigslist. You know, apparently you don't do that. My favorite grandson is Walker. He is my only grandson, but he is my favorite grandson. And he lives, eats, and breathes baseball. And we just have so much fun, Gary and I do, going and watching them do their thing and just excel in whatever they want to do. If it's athletics, fine, we're there to help them. If it's stock shows, then we're going to be there. 48 years ago, I took a blind date. So don't ever throw out a blind date if anybody offers you one. So I took this blind date and arranged by his sister, who said, you've just got to meet my brother. I'm like, oh, great. We went to an amusement park called Spring Lake, and I love roller coasters, still do. Gary doesn't. He hates them. But first date, going to ride the roller coaster with me. As soon as we got off the roller coaster, so excited, he goes over the trash can and just loses it. So he won't ride a roller coaster now, but he will stand at the end of it and hold my purse for me. So we've been married 47 years, and the good times and the bad times, 47 years is a long time. We ran off and got married to Vernon, Texas. He was running track at Oklahoma State, and I was at Southwestern. And so he transferred to Southwestern, and we had 2 daughters while I was going to school. So while they were in college, when they'd call and say, Mom, I'm so tired, I'm like, no slack. Have 2 kids, work full-time, your husband runs track, delivers milk at 4 o'clock in the morning, isn't going to happen. Get your tail out of bed and go to school. Get up. But anyway, he's always been there, always. we had friends that would joke and say, he's a lot better mother than you are. Like, that was real funny maybe at the time, but it really wasn't. But he took care of everything. The girls had clean workout clothes every single day. He made every game. He would arrange his travel. If they were playing basketball in Abilene or whatever, he'd make sure he could go there. I coached against my kids when they were in junior high. And so Gary had to decide, where was he going to sit? Was he going to sit on my side, which is what I expected? Or was he going to sit on their side, which is what they expected? And so he sat in the middle. That way there wasn't going to be a fight. Unless I won, which I normally did. And then they would come home and look at him saying, what? No. Go in their room and slam the door, and then you wouldn't see him till the next morning. But anyway, he's always been there, and I love him like my next breath, and he just has never he's never wavered from his loyalty or anything like that. And everybody gets up here and says how much they appreciate their family and their wives, but to be Mr. Coach has not always been easy, and I totally understand that. So I want to thank my family for traveling from the Metroplex in Lubbock to get here and be a part of this. I had a little sign on my door when I was at Bushland, and it's what I truly believe. When I first started coaching, I coached 5 sports, and my coaching stipend was $500 a year for 5 sports. The men, and I'm not a slam, the men coaches coached 2 sports. They got a 5-year increment and $1,500. John Wilkins taught me to stand up for your program. Don't ever let another coach, another school, a parent make you feel like your program, your female athletes, are not near as important as the other athletic programs that are going on. And I truly believe that. And sometimes it is a fight. And sometimes the fight's kind of ugly, you know. But you got to believe in what you're doing. And you got to know that whatever you're doing is just as important as the person on the next field, on the next track, on the next court. They're working as hard as you do, and they're working hard to beat you. But I had a sign on my office door that was small, and so you couldn't see it from a long way, but if you wanted to read it, you had to walk up and look at it. And it said, she believed she could, so she did. And I truly believe that. That is what our teams were about. That's what our program was about. Just believe it. Don't ever doubt. I can't thank you enough. I'm so humbled to be here. I'm so proud to be here. I'm proud to be in this class. I'm proud of the assistant coaches. I'm more proud to hear about the accomplishments of these student athletes up here. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I hope you're not applauded out and acknowledge one last time the newest inductees into the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame. Well, okay, before we move on to the second half of this afternoon's program, scared you, didn't I? Before we close, a couple of quick thank yous. To Joe Luscombe and his crew at New Day Productions for their video work, to Kids Incorporated Executive Director Jimmy Lackey, and especially to Stacy Knight for her work. If you're thinking, boy, there's a lot of moving parts and this thing runs pretty well, all you need to know is there's a woman pulling most of the strings that no one sees. Also, an appreciation goes to the sponsors who make these ceremonies financially possible, and they are listed in your program. In addition, Mike Haynes and Dave Wolforth have co-authored a book on the Panhandle Sports Hall of Fame. It's about as comprehensive a book as you can find on sports in the Panhandle, with extended biographies on the inductees. They are in the back there, and they will have any copies of books that you may be interested in purchasing. Finally, I leave you with one thought that relates to life, but also relates to athletics. In life, don't sweat the petty stuff, but also don't pet the sweaty stuff either. Again, thank you for your attendance. It would not be much of a party if you didn't show. And now Hall of Fame committee member Jack Knight will offer our benediction. And upon its conclusion, you are dismissed. Congratulations to all, and thank you.
Would you all please stand as we close? What a great day. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for your presence with us today and for the time we've had this afternoon to celebrate the outstanding accomplishments of our area players and coaches. We ask that you bless each person who took of their time together here today, and for those who spent many hours putting together this event and taking part in this ceremony. We ask for your continued protection for our men and women serving in our military here at home and abroad, and continue to guide our local, state, and our national leaders. Watch over all of us as we leave here and go to our homes. And now may the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. In Christ's name, amen.